Hello and welcome to another episode of 177 Nations of Tasmania podcast. In the last 20 years, Tasmania has seen the arrival of more and more newcomers from Africa, mainly refugees or former refugees from the many conflicts across the continent. One of the worst of these conflicts has been the civil war in the Democratic Republic of Congo, a war that has received little attention in Western media but has claimed millions of lives and caused many Congolese to flee their homes and seek refuge in other countries. The Congolese community has certainly grown in Tasmania to be one of the more notable African communities in the state. Now, Cedrick arrived in Tasmania just after his 18th birthday and has lived here since 2008. Like many others, he has overcome challenges to get himself both into and through university study to the point where he is now studying for his PhD. So we discussed the situation he experienced in the Congo and after that in the nation of Benin, and about the process of quite successfully adapting to a new and very different life in Tasmania.
I never had a choice to come to Tasmania. However, I should say I came here to Australia as part of the humanitarian intern program. Mm-hmm. And when you go through that settlement process, you do not pick where you want to go. But I remember, and I knew that we were coming to Tasmania about 2-3 days prior to the trip. And my mom had a friend or someone that she knew who was already in Australia. And it happens that that person was in Townsville. So the person made a request that now we've been together with this family, we would like them to come to Townsville. So this was the time that we were then told you were supposed to go to Tasmania, but then we also received a request from someone who wants you to come to Townsville. What is your decision? We knew nothing about Tasmania. We knew nothing about Townsville. Talk less about Australia, just hearing things in general. The only popular place in Australia that we knew was Sydney. So mom looked at us because it was my brother and I. He said, what do you want us to do? We said, we did not know either Townsville or Tasmania, but because it was picked that we go to Tasmania in the first instance, let's go to Tasmania first. And if we don't like it, we can then request to go to Townsville. And ever since, I have been in love with this place. Never went to Townsville, never visited Townsville. I've been in Queensland. But that's how I managed to be in Tasmania, Hobart.
So how old were you at that time?
I was about to turn 18. Actually turned 18. You can then guess my age. 2008, I turned 18 in the air coming to Australia. So I was still, I felt that I knew things. I was becoming an adult. But few years later, I discovered that I was still quite childish. We were in a very tiny country in West Africa called Benin. Many people probably don't know about it, but it's sharing borders with Nigeria, Togo, and the like. So we were in Benin for about 6 years. And from Benin, then when we were accepted to come to Australia after a very lengthy and stressful process, because you've got to go through an interview, and if you do not convince the interview panel, then it's rejected. We had the interviews in Benin. So the way that the process works, the UNHCR probably conduct pre-interviews with you, and they will determine whether or not they could make recommendation to another country such as Australia, the US or Canada. If they are satisfied that you are a potential candidate, then they will make the recommendation. So which was our case. And then once they do have a certain number, the country comes and conduct those interviews. You go through the medical checks. Not everyone get a tick. at the end of that process, and it's even more devastating than having a chance to go to the interview stage.
Yeah, so to sort of summarize, the pre-interview with the UNHCR, that sort of establishes that you've got potential to go to some country, but then it's up to, and it's a fairly small group of countries that may choose you, and then they do their own interview. Have I got that right?
That's right.
Yeah. And in your case, it was Australia.
It was Australia. I do have vague memories, not of the pre-interview stages, but of the interview itself, where they wanted to confirm our identity and if we were truly the people that we were. At the time, we were split in different rooms where questions were being asked about our situation, our family settings, and just to cross-check the answer that the three of us were giving at the time. But I should say that probably had the interview when I was 15 or so. I was treated quite kindly and gently because they did not want to go so much into the event that led us to come to Benin, or to settle in Benin at the time. But what I can say was, I remember how fearful Mom was, in terms of she had no control what we would say, whether we will know the answers to give, whether we have the relevant information. I gave whatever I knew, and if ever I had no answer to that question, I said, look, I don't have details about that, and Mom will probably need to answer. And then we were brought together in the room where we had someone to translate, because those conducting interviews would only speak in English, and we're speaking French at the time.
So obviously you left Congo when you were pretty young then.
Pretty young, yes. Left Congo age 11 or 12. Yes, pretty young. It's still, I probably know more of Australia now than I know or I knew of Congo at the time. And I believe I lived most of my life in Tasmania than elsewhere.
So what memories do you have of the Congo?
I probably remembered, I went back probably some 7 years ago now. Back then, the vague memories that I do have of the Congo was living in these family settings where each particular holidays you have to spend it with the grandparent, with other cousins and so on. Or when it's times like Christmas, where the grandparents will surely call all the grandchildren and throw a party for them with either a goat or chicken. The other vague memories would be of schooling. Okay. Where the emphasis was really so often on your result, and it's something that I don't see, or I did not really experience here, where you were ranked, so to say. You were the first of this class, the second, the third, and it's a very big deal where parents will come and you will be either congratulated or you will carry your report note, and then you are so proud of it. So I do have very good memories of schooling, being taught at the time to have a very competitive spirit. Okay. And I think I'm more than grateful to that, to the point where if I did not make it now, my spirit tells me that you've got to give more so that you would do better. There is a key sentence in one of the tests I remember, primary school, probably grade 2 or 3, which they said that if you are poor, you've got to work 2 times harder than the rich person so that you be at the same level. It is this memory of positive competition, not really to harm another person, but to give it your very best. And these are the key memories, family settings and skills of, in terms of my schooling. And I've carried them all along, and I'm grateful for that. It was not in the capital city where I grew up. I definitely grew up in an urban area. It's one of the provinces in Congo, which is the central part of Congo. So it was an urban area. Level of development, I wouldn't say that it's developed with all the infrastructure and so on. But I guess people determine your social background from whatever you may have received in terms of education, just to probably make you laugh. They will know that you are really well developed or advanced if you can speak French. And I think every parent wanted at the time a child to be in a very good school where they'll be able to speak not only the local language, but be able to speak French. And people will determine who you are in terms of the ability to speak that language. So I had that opportunity to learn how to speak and write in French as well as the other languages. So this is why I say, look, I was in an urban area because I could attend good school, Catholic schools at the time, and among the best school in that particular city.
In that area, what did people typically live from?
People mainly lived from diamonds. Okay. I know this sounds, it's not that you find diamonds everywhere, but people will be going, digging diamonds, and that's probably it was at the core or the center of the economy. And that's where capital, so money would definitely flow into the state. And everyone else, with either my grandparents, for example, they were doing some farming work, where they would go a little bit outside of the urban area, and she would be having her farms. My grandfather had goats and cattle. I told you earlier on about he would throw a party and grab one of them. My dad was working for a university at the time, so there were diverse commercial activities. Others would definitely go into the market and then they will be selling. So it was still as probably a modern economy as we would see today, where we are really getting people doing different activities to live from. Yeah.
But then you've just reminded me that the Congo is one of the things known about it. It's very resource rich.
Resource, yes, that's correct.
Which I guess is both a blessing and a curse.
It is a curse and a blessing. Look, part of the trouble in the Congo today, it will be misleading by saying that the resources are not at the center. I know we're talking of political situation and so on, but the war in Congo in 2003 or even from 1997 ended up being termed as the first African World War, because there were closer to 9 different countries fighting within the borders of the Congo. And it was all about resources. But what can we do? A blessing and a curse. So we got to learn how to manage both.
I don't want to assume too much, but my guess was that your family had to leave because of the civil war?
Yes, the family had to leave because of the civil war and the situation that was happening. My last name was the same last name of the then opposition leader. And we do come from the same province. It's like here in Tasmania, we say, look, I am a Tasmanian, I'm a Queenslander, and so on. So they could In Congo, they would easily identify you thanks to your name. They can really guess where you're coming from. What language you speak could also be a guide. So we were sharing the same last name. Trust me, not family related at all. The only common thing was, yes, we were all coming from the same province. And the way that people do get names in Congo, it's you can be my good friend. I give birth to my son, and then I said, all right, in recognition of whatever you would have done,
Yep.
I carry your full identity and I give it to my son.
Okay.
So this is probably how we ended up sharing that last name, and that caused us a problem. And because we were then believed to be associated to the then political opposition leader.
Right.
And let's face it, it was almost at the crossroad after the end of the Mobutu regime, and that opposition leader really gave a lot of headache to Mobutu. And then there was the entrance of Kabila, who really wanted to get rid of anything to do with Mobutu and implement his own system. So we're talking of 1997. Things really escalated in 1998, and the only good thing between that period until 2003 or so was, where possible, if you could leave, do that. And thanks to some, support of church communities and so on, we managed to escape to the best of our abilities, and we're still very, very young at the time.
Yeah, because I think people here we don't hear that much about the conflict in the Congo, but if you read up about it, you find that it's one of the worst conflicts in terms of loss of life since probably the Second World War. Like millions of people have died in over a period of time, and it's a very dangerous time, from what I can gather.
That's you've probably nailed it there. Who do we blame? Sometimes it's what the media give to us. That's what we get. Just turn on your radio or your TV. How often do you hear about the situation in African countries? Probably not. At the moment, we're talking about Russia and Ukraine, where they said, look, the invasion is imminent. But the situation in Congo has gone on for years and years. What do you hear? Only when you want to learn about it, you go out there, you start fishing for that information, and then you know about it. The choice of Benin probably came in with this mindset that, look, it was a small country, and we wanted a place where we could fit very, very quickly with French as the language that you could speak, because it's a French-speaking country. And I should say that we made a transit through Nigeria because of English. We say no, we don't even want to cope or think of learning English as a language. Here I am today, we're having this conversation in English. So the choice of Benin, I guess, came through the flow of people. Not a choice as such, it's you really go from one place to the other as sheep and following someone. We say, no, over there we believe that the greens the grass are green, and it's more peaceful, it's better.
In Benin, did you feel, I know you were fairly young, did you feel like that was the new home, or that it was just a place you were temporarily?
I used to say this, of course I now have some good friends, but I always say we did not feel at home. And you would probably question this, where although we could speak French, once again we're easily identified that we were not locals. It has you telling me, this is a British speaking, this is an American speaking. They can all speak English, but you say, oh no, this is a Kiwi who is speaking here. And through that process, I remember one day, that's where I finally told myself that this is not home, or will never be home. there was a sentence that was said, not to boast or to show off, but I was very conscious carrying away that sentence in primary school that I told you earlier. I was dedicated myself to studies, and they say, all right, if there is anything that I can do here, it is to study. And remembering that my dad once told us that you rather be educated and poor than being rich and uneducated. So I say, all right, this education, then it's probably going to be my only riches here. So dedicated to studies. Remembering one day I topped the class, I was first there. When some of the colleagues came and say, look, you are coming here being the best of all the students, at the same time begging for our peace. You've got to go back to Congo. You've come to Benin begging for our peace. That's the moment I say it was not by choice that I left the Congo. And using the term begging for peace, I'd say, is peace a commodity now? Should I beg for this? Straight away I say, this will never be home. But I did not know how I was going to get out of that place. So I never felt fully accepted because I was still a stranger in their eyes.
Yeah, right. What was your status in Benin? Did you have the same status as a native, or
no? You just had the refugee status, and once again, when it comes to jobs and so on, all the jobs ads will always come that look only reserved for natives. So parents could not really find formal employment. Yes, if you are lucky enough, someone through a back door offers you, come and do X, Y, and Z for me, you get paid. That's it. Myself never thought, even at the time, that I could go and find either a casual or part-time jobs as people do in Woolies today and so on. But that was the situation.
What was your first impression or first memories of coming to Tasmania?
Still remember... we landed in Melbourne at about 5 o'clock in May. You would definitely guess it's already closer to winter. We are about to welcome winter. And moving from, for those who surely know Melbourne, from the international terminal to the domestic terminal. So there is a walkway where you've got really to pass outside. The person who welcome have no idea who it was, because you just find someone standing there with your name, and then you start following. They reach at the door, they say, it is very cold. I had the jacket and I thought that no, it was warm enough. He said it's very cold. I made the first step. As soon as I felt the cold, I went backward. No. Coming to Hobart was even worse. So the weather was the very first thing at the Hobart terminal that I say, I don't think that with this type of weather we'll ever cope in this place. But it was a small place. The memories back then, it was a bush there, and to some extent, a bit of disappointment because the image of Australia that was sold to us was the Sydney Opera House. So you see all these beautiful beach around Sydney, because part of you're coming, you've got to have this little video about Australia. So I compare these two things with Hobart, was quite disappointed. So that was the first impression, I'd say.
Apart from the weather, what were some of the challenges that you found in just adapting to new life in Tasmania?
I guess you would remember we avoided Nigeria due to English as a language. This time there was no way to escape. So learning English was another challenge. I still remember a very good friend now. I tend to call him my dad. We met through a church group. He would speak. He's got a very long beard. He would speak. I would not get a word. With him, I said, if this is how Australians speak, it was as if they were just murmuring, but while he was speaking, if this is the way, I'll never get it. So language was another problem there. There was probably so much pressure that I would say I put on myself was after all the experience that facing Benin and also looking on how this was a very lucky opportunity for us to come here. The pressure was to get it right, to make most of it. So I was so keen to get back to school very quickly. I was so keen to integrate very, very quickly, get a job, become really independent when it comes to finances. I remember being told that if ever you want to get any problem in this country with any organization, do so, but not with Centrelink. So these were some of the warnings that I was given. So I said the only way out of this is, all right, let me be independent, and the best job is really having a job, not being on welfare. So and making connections with friends, because I knew no one except two people at the time, mom and my brother. No one else had no idea how life was going to unfold. You would turn on the TV, you hear no word of what they are saying. Of course, you can see. It was really that pressure of integrating and doing it so very quickly, because the longer it was taking, the harder it was to become for us in terms of educations, employment, and so on. So that pressure that I put on myself, if I would have had another chance, I think I would have taken it so easily. But anyway, to some extent, I'm still grateful that I had to jump on board and very, very quickly. And remembering we had volunteers from Center Care who within 2 months, they say, actually a month and a half in the country, they say, no, they are pretty much independent because they know how to catch the bus. They can get to the doctor by themselves. They can ring the interpreter lines. They can do all these things. So there is not much that we can do anymore. I regretted that because I felt that we would have maybe learned more from them in terms of skills and understanding the country better, because everyone else had 6 to 12 months of relationship with them. But we felt that because they saw how keen we were, and they said, look, they are independent, but we're actually not. We're probably giving so much in a very short period of time. And later on, I faced once again the challenge of being accepted in the broader community. Look, I've met some wonderful people, but there is always one. So look, there were name callings at the time on the street. You object being thrown at you. You wouldn't really want to be working, especially when it's standard time. When it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you really don't want to be working alone, because that's the time that I've had people thrown eggs at me. So it was another challenge. But this time around, the approach that I took was, I was told that this is going to be your new home and I've got to make it my home. I did not think, as I thought in Benin's case, that I will find another place to go. I say I either have a job here to accept this situation, live with, but at the same time trying to educate the general population through 1, 2, 3 people that I am not different from you. If you cut my arms, you will just see the blood is red. There is no difference. So these were some of the things that I got, and adapting to the education system. It was quite challenging, very different. Teachers would take things so differently. I remember in college, I did not understand something at the time where one of the teachers went and knelt down in the carpet while I was sitting, trying to say, hang on a minute. No, please, you've got to stand up. If there is anyone who's got to do this, I am the one. So a teacher back in Africa is considered a certain level, but here they take it as it's a job. I am here to really give. There is that relationship as like a father and a son. But on the other end, it's like a boss and his employee. I wasn't used to that at all. You felt at the time as, this isn't right. But until I came to a conclusion that maybe that's how they do things here, because I did not see that from one particular teacher. Almost everyone will act in a similar way. I say, all right, the only thing they have, it's really giving me this information for me to understand, and they will use different method. At the time, you will sit in a carpet in the library. I'd say you can't sit on the floor here. We've got to do it in a formal setting. But they would either have their lunch with them, and while either explaining to you, they tell you to bring your own lunch, and having a conversation while they're passing on that knowledge very, very easily. So, which is one of the good things. Later on, I'd say, I wish I had my education prior in this particular setting as well, where you come out of it, you know that, look, they've given or delivered this information with passion and love. So always thankful to every single teacher that I've had and for what they've passed on. I spent 1.5 years at Guildford Young College in Hobart, and straight after I took the challenge to go to uni. I remember how many people discouraged me to take that step, because they believe that no, it wasn't the right decision, it's too expensive, you may end up failing, you still need to master the language, the academic English at uni, it's very different, you will not get the support as you are getting in high school. But that competitive spirit that I've always had told me that, okay, this is a challenge. You've got really to meet it and prove that you can. And frankly speaking, I do say that if I had hesitated at the time, I think I would have regretted. So it was definitely the best decision that I made, because I even had to undertake this self-assessment test at uni that was given to students from my multicultural background, where you have to write an essay, and the report came. They say you've got a C. This is not enough. We do recommend that you get at least a B, place of an A, and then we would be confident. I say, no, it's an advice, but I'm definitely proceeding with the enrollment. In 2008, after arriving, because on how keen I was and so on, managed to get a casual employment with Center Care. At the time, where fortunately enough, within few months, they thought that I had a better understanding of the system. I was now helping newcomers from the Congo and really passing on those skills, of course, under the supervision of a caseworker who was working there. So that was my very first employment in Australia. And when I graduated, prior to that, again, I started working at McDonald's. I always tell people I'm not ashamed of telling them where I worked, but got some great skills there to know how to deal with difficult people or customers. My really first professional job after graduating was I worked a couple of months at Pondville Detention Center when it was operating. And then came the 2013 federal election. Everything was done, and worked with Common Ground. It's in Barrack Street, where they're working with people who've been homeless for a while to really become like a case coordinator to help them transition from that particular situation into permanent housing with support and reconnecting them with the community. So this is how I was thrown into the employment space.
But have you found that people that you meet are generally have become more knowledgeable and more aware of Africans in the different countries of Africa?
Look, there is a lot of improvement, and I think we've made progress in Tasmania. Saying otherwise would probably not be, I wouldn't be honest. Compared to when I first came here and now, yes, people have become more knowledgeable, surprisingly enough. Back then, Africa, when they look at it, you are an African, can you tell us about the country of Africa? Africa was a country to many people. I mean, we're not talking of this knowledge of 1950. No, it was up until 2010, I still heard those type of things, and that's how I say your geography is pretty good, because you would also remember at the start of this conversation, I was explaining even where Benin is, because some people had no idea, even with some of these countries. But now I can see the broader community understand that Africa is not a country, Africa is a continent. Not only that, but if you tell them where in Africa you've been, you are not only referred to as a Sudanese, because that was and there was a history. I ended up asking myself, why is it this? And to be told that no, Sudanese were probably the first group of African to come to Tasmania, and everyone just ended up knowing them. And the other thing is, I do think that we've become more and more tolerant in Tasmania, which was a different view that I had when I reached places such as Melbourne or Sydney, where you see that people knew that people can come from different corners of the earth. Tasmania wasn't really that much, but these days it's not unusual to find someone from a different background in a particular workplace, and people have really accepted everyone. A question that I don't hear so often, and this is why I'm judging this: where are you coming from? It's no longer coming or resonating. You can have a conversation with someone, you can seek a service without being asked where you're coming from. That's why I say I think we've become more tolerant. And there was even a show, I think, on SBS at the time, but still it used to be a question I will ask everywhere I go. You enter, you come out. Now, no more.
How easy did you find it in the first maybe few years you were here to get to know local people?
I guess for me it wasn't an easy task, because number one, you still look as a stranger to everyone. Yeah. And it was up to you to start breaking those barriers. And the wider community, people may feel like they want to have that friendship with you, but they do acknowledge that you are different, and they don't know how you will react or how they can connect with you. That's one of the things. The second thing is, The strategies that I personally use in breaking those barriers would be, it's either I am making that very first step. Look, we can either start with an informal chat and off we go. Or the other way could be in workplaces. When at work, of course, not everyone is your friend, but every single opportunity that you have to either share one or two things about how different you are, or how good you are, or what you can do. These type of things, I believe, did help. Or in any gathering, this is how I made most of my friends. And the only thing I could say would be having the courage to make that very first step.
What's sort of your hope for the future for your daughter?
I am hoping, and this is probably my greatest desire, that she gives not only to Tasmania, but to this country the very best for herself. The second thing is that wouldn't be possible if she does not have equal chances at everyone else. I don't want her to be judged by the color of her skin, but I want her to be judged by her intellect, her skills, abilities, and what she is able to offer. And I think that's how everyone is being treated. Whatever I may have gone through, trying to settle, to fight, to really adapt, I don't want her to go through that. She is born here, for example.
Yeah.
She has no knowledge at this stage of the Congo. And I think even if I give her all the knowledge possible about Congo, she would always think Tasmania, Australia is my home first.
Yeah.
And then I want her to get those equal chances, equal opportunities, that fair treatment to truly advance Australia and contribute, as everyone was born in the same year with her on the same day, or that she would study with, or she would work with, all those chances. So let her not really, I'm hoping that she will never be judged by the color of her skin or by her Congolese background, but by what she will be able to give.